Many of us know about social problems in our societies. It doesn't matter what society you live in, you have social problems. You have problems like homelessness, alcoholism, perhaps gangs and human trafficking and so forth. These are social problems that most societies have. And even in Western societies, they have several elements of these types of social problems. So it's important for us to understand these social problems, why they persist from generation to generation, never ending. They're always there. Why is that? We ask the question. Now, this triangular model will tell us a little bit about how social problems are perpetrated and how the citizens view these social problems, but more importantly, what can be done to address the social problems, right? So on this side, we have institutions, on this side, we have ideologies, and on this side, we have individuals, taking action through social action or shaping their societies through social action. So here we'll look at institutions. Now, when we talk about institutions, we're talking about the media. We're talking about corporations, multinational corporations. We're talking about government, schools, and cultures and religious organizations. So I talk about all of these organs of society that shape the narrative of social problems. So, for example, they tell us, let's think about homeless people. They tell us sometimes they tell us that homeless people, deserve their situation because it's self-inflicted. Sometimes they tell us that. They put out a narrative, and that narrative is consumed by citizens. There we have ideology. This narrative that is put out by these institutions, consumed by the citizens, and impact the way the citizens see the social problem, but also impact citizens' involvement by way of solution in the social problem. If they are putting out a narrative that homeless people deserve their situation, the chances are the citizens will not be part of the solution. They will just walk away and say these people deserve the situation in which they're in because of how the institutions are narrating the social problem. This is very important. Government is part of the institutions. Government makes laws and policies and practices, right? They make laws and policies and practices. And depending on the impact of the law, it may impact the way citizens see the social problem. This is why institutions must get it right, and they must get it right the first time to make sure that they are sending the right message about the social problems and to make sure that the citizens have the right intention in terms of their involvement in social problem. But that's not always the case, because sometimes institutions send out the wrong message to have negative vibes about the social problem. They perpetuate the social problem from one generation to the other, and that's why we see social problems that existed in the 1920s, in the 1930s, 50s, 70s, still with us today. That's because of how institutions have narrated the problem, citizens, and how the citizens have consumed the problem. So the perspective shared by institutions, the narrative of institutions, the views and opinions of institutions become ideology and inform the way citizens see the social problem. That's why it says here how we see the problem. How we see the problem as members of society is dependent on how institutions portray the problem. Please take note. Look at the connection between institutions and citizens, between institutions and ideology. The institutions form the ideology by the way they portray the social problem, right? And that ideology is consumed by the citizens. And that's why it's important for institutions, once again, to get it right the first time. All right, so then here we have society, individuals and communities shape society through social action. So sometimes individuals may see the social problem and may say, well, this is not right. Even though institutions have put out a very negative view about the social problem, again, using homelessness as an example, the institutions may say, well, these homeless people deserve it. They had jobs, they blew it, they had stress they couldn't handle, they have mental issues, and they lost their jobs, and now they're on the streets. Well, that's not our problem. If institutions put it that way, well, the citizens see it that way as well, and solutions may not come from the citizens, right? So sometimes then citizens will say, wait a minute, institutions have a very negative view about these social problems. That's not right. We have to take action, right? And that's why it says how individuals and communities shape society through social action. We have to take social action. And what does that mean? It means getting involved in the problem, writing letters, funding solutions, pressuring lawmakers to change the law and to put money and to maybe invest in research to understand the cause of the social problems, and sometimes donating their time and sometimes through demonstrations, being out there on the streets, pressuring the government and relevant authorities to take action, right? So individuals can shape society through social action by getting involved in the social problem. And getting involved by way of, with a view to solving the social problem, right? By these methods I just mentioned, demonstrations, protests, writing letters, contributing money, and spending time. For example, you can go to soup kitchens and help. You can contribute, donate your clothes to help, people that are in a very, very precarious situation, for example. Right? Those are ways that society, members of society, can help address social problems. And that's what this is addressing here. How individuals and communities shape social problems through social action. Through social action. So once again, institutions perpetuate the social problem. They narrate the social problem. They tell us about the social problem. They keep the narrative going. And the institutions are media, government, corporations, for example. You have family, you have schools, you have religious organizations, cultural bodies. These are all organs of society that shape the way we see social problems, right? And they are institutions. And the way they narrate the social problem is consumed is the citizen and becomes the ideology. In other words, the way the citizens see the social problem is dependent on how the institutions narrate the social problem. If they narrate it in a positive way, with a view to finding solutions, with a view to saying, well, society has to do more, the government has to do more, we as a collective society and unit, have to be part of the solution, well, then the ideology is that. The ideology is we have to do more. We have to look for ways to help these social problems in our society. Right? So how individuals see the problem is dependent on how institutions narrate the problem. And ideologies are dependent on how institutions narrate the problem as well. And sometimes individuals will take matters into their hands and say to find the solution from institutions. In spite of the narrative coming from institutions and in spite of the consumption of those narratives, individuals will say, this is not right. We have to find the solution. And then they take action through individual efforts, contribution, spending time, pressuring lawmakers, demonstrating, protest out there, hiring lobby groups to lobby on their behalf, and so forth, etc. Right, and this is very important as well. So institutions like corporations engaging in corporate social responsibilities could really inform social problem and present it in a positive light within the view of solutions by funding, for example, community centers, giving scholarships, building libraries and schools in the communities in which they serve and where they make their money. We're talking about corporations and so forth. When this happens, citizens see it in a very positive way. And citizens want to explore ways that they can get involved in solving the social problem. So once again, the way citizens see the social problem is dependent on how the institutions we have mentioned, portray the social problem. And also individuals can take matters into their hands if they solve the social problem, if they perceive that institutions are not doing enough, or institutions are part of the problem and not part of the solution. They take matters into their hands through social action that we've already highlighted some of those actions. Model helps the social problem. That model helps us to understand social problems, more importantly, the solutions to social problems, how institutions interact with, how institutions perpetuate ideologies, how institutions form our ideologies, and how society can take action collectively to address the social problem. So this is the triangular model.